Well, Superman and Lois delivers yet another episode after their brief break. And they kind of weave that into the story. This is supposed to take place sometime after the events of the previous episode. But just as Lois was in somewhat of denial about her condition, now it's Clark's turn to be in denial. He joins a therapy group or support group, what have you, for the spouses of chemo patients. And he's like, hey, it's not for me. And of course, he's haunted by some of the patients telling him about how at some point you just, you give in to the disease, because it's just too hard to go on. And, well, he doesn't want Lois getting like that. And Lois is already telling him, well, I need to make a will and all that. He's like, no, you don't. Because, well, he's in denial and stuff. And he's like, yeah, well, hopefully I can beat this, but if I don't, you're going to beat it, Meanwhile, Jordan does another rescue, and Clark is like, hey, you're not supposed to go by yourself and all that. Because now he's trying to keep everybody safe and protected. And he does another training session with him in the Fortress of Solitude, and there you get an appearance of, a holographic version of Bizarro. Little does he know that Bizarro is on his way back. Oh, damn it, I wasn't supposed to spoil that. Well, by now, if you're not watching the show, Mannheim has Bizarro's corpse, and so, of course, he's going to resurrect it. But meanwhile, so he's practicing. The other holographic character he fights is the Atomic Skull, who has not actually made a real appearance in the show, but it's interesting that they acknowledge, I guess he exists. Because the idea is that Superman has had his Superman career that everyone's familiar with, and now he's settled down with Lois and had some kids and stuff. So these are the later years, but looks like it would have been too expensive of a character to do on the show. At least not for very long, the CGI and everything. So just as a holographic animation thing that fault with Superboy there, it was fine. But and then he kept increasing the danger levels of the test and stuff because says, hey, I just want you to be fully trained. And Jonathan gets pissed and goes home and cries, and all that. And Lois says, you're being too hard on him. And ultimately, he's not facing up to, the realities of he can't save everybody. Meanwhile, the other soap operas go on. Sarah's little sister that nobody ever notices runs away. They have to find her. And she's upset because nobody notices she even exists. Boy, yeah, she feels left out. It's interesting because Jonathan comes to talk to her. He says, yeah, sometimes I feel left out because, he doesn't have superpowers and all that stuff. But also because of the move to Smallville was hard on him and that kind of thing. The little girl, she's not ready for acting just yet, but it's interesting because the scenario played out in the recent episode of The Flash, and, she did a better job even though that was with adults. So anyway, but it's the Superman show, and Chrissy and Kyle had decided to go public with their relationship because Lana kind of stumbled in on him, so she's all upset. But Lana's like, it's past time to poop and get off the pot. He's moving on, stupid. You said you didn't want him, and that's what this is about. I mean, it's coached in the idea that she's blaming him for Sophie disappearing, but that's because Sarah and Jonathan just didn't notice her leaving. So it wasn't really on him. But that's the deal. Make up your mind already. Well, too late because he's made up his. And so he and Chrissy are dating now. And they're not going to sneak around anymore. So they're out and proud. So anyway, back to the action. Superman is lured into a trap because Mannheim and his mad scientists are saying, hey, look, Superman's too much of a threat. And Deadline from the previous episode is all of a sudden dying of cancer. Gee, I wonder how that happened. Obviously, these experiments has a terrible side effect. So the guy is like begging Superman to take him to Mannheim. He's the only one who can save me. And so he does, and Mannheim says, get him out of here, take him to the hospital. It won't do anything. So takes him to the hospital where he dies. So that's the deal of the price of those powers, I guess. Unless, of course, they were already sick to begin with, and that's part of what he's doing. I mean, he does have his cancer research facility there, and it's combined with that. So, but the mad scientist guys are saying, look, he's a threat while we're working on, Bizarro here. So they set up a trap for Superman, and the onomatopoeia lady, who am I guessing, because it's the same look of the character from the comics, but that was a man, and this is just, I don't know. I guess they just liked the look and used it for this story. Lures him by mimicking Lois's voice. And so Superman thinks, oh no, Lois is in trouble. So he flies over there, and it's a trap, of course. There's first onomatopoeia lady attacks him with her sonic powers, and then the goons show up with their kryptonite rifles, and it's not looking good for Superman. And then Lois comes home, and Jordan's like, oh, Mom, you're okay. She says, yeah, why not? Says, oh, well, we heard you screaming, and so Dad went to go get you. And she's like, oh, that doesn't sound right. So she's like, I need you to concentrate and try to hear your father. So he does, and there he can hear his dad screaming. So he puts on his outfit that his grandpa gave him, and, well, it's basically just a pilot's, thing from World War I and goggles. But it's an effort to hide his identity. So he zips over there, he knocks out all the goons for the most part, and then tries to take on Onomatopoeia, but she blasts him. And then one of the other guys manages to get back up and shoots him with his kryptonite gun and takes him out. And Superman loses his poo and lashes out at them and knocks Onomatopoeia lady into some barrels or whatever. And then rushes over to Jordan, and for a few seconds there, he thinks he's dead. He's died and he's losing it, and all that. And that's the idea of him he's going to have to deal and face the potential for loss and whatnot. But Jordan wakes up. Turns out the kryptonite doesn't hurt him nowhere near as bad as it does Superman, and because he's half human, and heals up and he's fine. They go home. And and then he talks with Lois, and he admits he's having trouble. He can't stand the thought of being powerless and not having the ability to save her this time around. And so they cry and hug and all that. Meanwhile, back at Mannheim's secret hideout or basement or whatever, Onomatopoeia comes in and says, well, I couldn't kill him. And then she collapses, takes her mask off, and it's revealed to be Peia, Mannheim's wife. Yeah, we didn't know he was even married, but and she's Peia, I guess I didn't mention, she's one of the other cancer patients that Lois is becoming friends with, and so this was the deal. He's trying to save her because she's dying on him just like his mother did, and that's why he's trying to figure out some kind of cure. So. He has this understandable motive here, rather than just for power and evil or whatever. But now he's trying to save his wife, but at the cost of everybody else. But anyway, that's the big reveal as to who she is, and that explains Mannheim's motives here as far as that goes. So there's a few dips here and there I thought were a bit cheesy. And at first I thought, hey, this is a bit of a swap of positions for Lois and Superman as far as dealing with the reality of her diagnosis. But then again, they stipulated that this was sometime later, so it wasn't all that quick. But, it's one of those things that, yes, there's always a lot of denial in the face of mortality. So anyway, another fine episode from Superman. Superman and Lois.